Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Yes, we're back here in the studio for another great conversation. We've got another amazing guest here today. I'm David Bell and I'm joined with my co-host, this afternoon for most of us, but it could be morning for some, could be even evening time for others. But welcome. We have a great conversation going to be kicking off very shortly. But I'm going to hand over to Professor Alan Barrell because there's a direct connection here, Alan. I think it pretty much
there is a direct connection, and thank you all for being with us. It's my great pleasure to be with you. Henry is my grandson, one of 4 grandsons. I also have 4 granddaughters. Henry is the eldest of the grandsons. We also have a great-grandson and another great-grandson about to appear a bit later in the year. So we are a big family, and we're a very close family. Henry is not my oldest grandchild. My eldest granddaughter is 34. So when I think of these things, I feel very, very old. And Henry and I have been spending some time together over the years, in many ways, in his work and in his interests and other things. He's been with me most of last week with a group of 60 Chinese undergraduates doing a lot of good work there. He's going to talk to you a lot about students and student life and undergraduate life, and also how you move from undergraduate life. And I'm hoping they'll give us a signal if they're there that Jianju and Echo may be online from Beijing, because if you are, we've got some news for you later that Henry may be out there soon. So let us know sometime if you have joined with a little message. If not, I'm going to send you an email anyway. And I think Zoe from Shenyang is also with us today, although she's probably in ARU or in her home. So Henry, he's a very, very active, very energetic, very enthusiastic, very entrepreneurial, not easy to control young man who's done all sorts of interesting things. He's got a marketing degree. He's done some great work in marketing already. And now he's got this passionate desire to found this company that he's actually established already, to see what he can do to help some of you graduates or those of you that are closing in on your end to your education in university might want to do to stop the worry of what you do next and how you find a career path. And he'll tell you quite a bit about his own career path. So he's got 2 strong brothers, one of whom has already got his own business, George, who's been on one of these events before. So Henry, you say a bit more about yourself, and in you go to whatever pitch you want to give. And then David and I will ask you some awkward questions.
Please. The more awkward, the better. It's good to meet everybody on the call. Hello. Thank you for such a lovely introduction, Alan. Alan, Grandpa. I'm never sure what to call you on these sort of calls when we're out in public. But thank you for having me on, David. And I have known each other for a couple of years. I've done one of these before, probably about a year and a half ago, I would say, about a year ago.
It was a year ago we had you on here, yes, and you were talking about, we're going to break it down, but you were talking about something you were working on at the time. But a year is quite a long time, but very short as well in the same time, and things have changed for you for the better. And this is what we're going to kind of break down and find out a lot about. You're young, you're entrepreneurial, you've got that mind thinking of, what's out there, what should I be looking at, who can I help, where do we go, turn next, and stuff like that. So it'd be really good, actually, maybe cast our mind back a year, give or take a few days, and just tell us where you were and tell us a little bit what's happened over the last sort of 12 months and bring us up to date on the Grad Job Club.
Yeah. I love to make a short answer long-winded, so I'll actually cast it back maybe 7 or 8 years and start with a bit more context. Everyone, I'm Henry, you know that by now. I'm a marketing graduate. So in 2017, so about, 11 years ago or so, 9 years ago, sorry, not 11 years ago, I joined the University of York to study marketing. Always had an interest in business. I've loved everything that comes with it, but I've also had this sort of creative side of me, my sort of right-hand side of my brain. And I wanted to combine the two. And that sort of, at my early stage, led me down the marketing route. So I studied marketing at university. And I had quite a classic corporate trajectory from my time across university. I very much explored all this marketing stuff. I spent a little bit of time at BMW. So I worked for a year in their branding team, which was awesome. And I was like, yes, marketing's for me. I then sort of doubled down on that and ended up accepting a grad scheme at Virgin Media O2. So telecoms, mobile and Wi-Fi. I never thought I would be there. I would have never been able to predict that, but that's part of the fun of growing up, right? And saying yes to opportunities and putting yourself out there. I had a fantastic, until very recently, which I'll explain in more detail, a fantastic about 4 years Virgin Media, maybe just over. Initially in marketing, right? But ending up in tech and engineering, ending up in sort of business manager, chief of staffy sort of roles, for lack of a better word, doing a little bit of everything. But I quit my career at Virgin Media last year, back end of 2024, but I say last year, to follow a more entrepreneurial path. So you guys on this call might know Alan. My grandfather has obviously been in and involved with entrepreneurship for 2 decades, 3 decades, a long time, probably longer than I've been alive. And I've had this itch right in the middle of my back, and I haven't been able to scratch it until recently, to follow a bit more of an entrepreneurial path. And so I quit my job at Virgin Media to start the Grad Job Club, which is this words you see on my cap. I hope they're not backwards for you; they're backwards for me. To scratch that itch, but also to help students, recent graduates, navigate the job market, because it's really tricky. It's really tricky. It's not impossible. By no means is it impossible, but it is tricky without the right strategy. And I guess now, to answer David's question with a bit of my context before the context, is what's happened in the last year. So I quit my job at Virgin to follow this entrepreneurial path, right? But this wasn't the first company that I started. I started initially, well, it took me about 6 months to figure out what I wanted to start anyway. I didn't quit with a plan. If anyone's thinking about doing that, I would probably recommend you quit with a little bit of a plan. But I just knew that I had an itch to scratch, and I had to find a tree to rub my back on. And so I quit my job, and I started initially, which is what my last one of these calls was about, was social media management, creating an agency to help people tell their stories online, content creation, all that sort of stuff. And I loved it, but it wasn't quite satisfying that entrepreneurial urge. It felt like I was still delivering all this other stuff for all these other people, and I wasn't being quite as creative as I wanted to be. And so in the back of my mind, I've always had this concept that I want to help other people going through the early careers, people navigating that university careers journey, internships, placement years, graduate jobs, but then people who've recently graduated university have been struggling, but also maybe you're early in their career and they want a career change. They've ended up in a job that isn't really anything that they wanted to do, but they've just ended up there as a sort of stepping stone, helping them pivot and figure out where they want to land. So I spent, I guess, 2025, I explained to David just before we went live, almost like if anyone has a cat or a dog, right? You know how they sort of walk in circles around the cushion a little bit, sort of needing the cushion to get comfortable. I felt like I was doing that a little bit. And then back end of last year, I've found where I'm comfortable, and which is the Grad Job Club. So it's a company that is now fully incorporated, and we help. We have a platform, we have a community. We help hundreds of graduates navigate the job market. Is that enough context for you, David?
It gets us started. It gets us started. We're going to break this down, because we're going to have people. The whole idea of these webinars that we run is it brings people from different walks, different backgrounds of life, but not always, but typically those that maybe have gone through university life, in this case, potentially going to graduate, maybe graduated. And of course, there'll be academics on this call as well. And there'll be people out there that are running businesses that are looking at taking on their next or maybe their first employee as well. And that could be coming from, the graduate market as well. So this is so relevant to so many different people, regardless of where they are, what they're doing. And of course, we don't, one of Alan's famous words, so I'm going to coin it here, but this is business without borders. We're not just talking to people in the UK here, we're talking to people all around the world. And if anyone's on this call live, you're welcome to pop into the chat, ask questions as we go through. And of course, if you're watching this on Catch Up, thank you for taking the time to tune in and watch on Catch Up TV, as I like to call it. So let's kind of take the new product, the Grad Job Club. What was the reason, the big reason behind it? Was it the passion? Did you see, a money-making opportunity? What was the driver behind it? apart from you were kind of going for a pivoting change as well?
Two main motivating factors, I'd say. The first one being that I was really frustrated. I was frustrated at seeing everybody struggle to navigate the job market. My friends, I've got two younger brothers, as Alan mentioned, one of them of which is going through this sort of job hunt at the moment. He's in his final year of university, seeing his friends, hearing so many stories, like hundreds of stories of people struggling to navigate the job market. Obviously, it's very tough right now. Vacancies are down, competition is high, AI is replacing jobs, globalization, there's still a COVID backlog in employment. So I was frustrated hearing people struggle. And I felt like I had quite not necessarily, David, a unique perspective, right? But I definitely felt like I have a powerful perspective in the sense I'd been through the process, various internships and placement years and stuff. And when I was at the back end of my career at Virgin Media, I was a manager. So I'd sort of been on the other side of the fence a little bit as well. So I had this powerful experience, as I say, not necessarily unique, lots of people have that, but powerful experience that I wanted to share with everybody. The strategies that worked with me and have now worked for other people, I wanted to make those available for as many people navigating the process as humanly possible, basically. It's a funny thing that there's 1 million graduates every single year in the UK, master students and undergrads, or thereabouts. And every year, basically, 1 million people teach themselves how to navigate the job market, right? This interview, oh, that didn't work. I'll try this. Oh, that worked. Okay, now this CV, that doesn't work. Oh, this one works. They figure out what works for them. And then the next year comes around and another 1 million people teach themselves how to start that process again, which just seems silly. So everything that worked for me, I wanted to make accessible. And I guess the second thing that sort of brings me onto it, the second motivating factor is that I was a bit, sorry for my slight French, bit pissed off with the fact that people gatekeep careers advice. People sort of figure out what works for them, right? And they keep their cards very close to their chest, like it's going to give them some sort of competitive advantage later in life, right? They've got some sort of magical system that is going to work for them. They don't want to share it with anybody else. So I wanted to break that taboo, knock down those barriers, and not fall victim of the sort of same system that I hate, and make sure that what works for me is working for other people. I guess the philosophy behind what we do at the Grad Job Club is that it's not hard to find jobs to apply to, right? It's not hard there's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs if you look on LinkedIn, right? Internships. It's not hard to find jobs. What is really damn hard is applying to those jobs in a way that helps you stand out, that helps you get noticed, that ultimately lands you interviews and gets you hired. That is the really hard part. And so at the Grad Job Club, me and the team, we put all of our energy into the second part of it, into creating the strategies, the tools, the systems, and really importantly, the roadmaps for people start to finish to navigate that whole process.
Can I just add something, Henry, here? Because I've spent decades working with thousands of young people studying for degrees, graduate degrees, postgraduates, PhDs. And, in many cases, very many cases, they get well into their education and they're doing quite well with learning and stuff, but they're not quite sure where they want to go. And particularly those that do higher level scientific degrees. A lot of PhDs don't know what the hell they want to do. All they know they want to get is learn a lot and get a PhD. Well, a PhD is fine when you've got it, but what is it good? It doesn't buy a loaf of bread, does it, when you go out shopping? So we have, over the years, some of us, been developing programs which enable young people to think about life choices and what is going to be my life's journey. And as Henry knows, I run a workshop. We did it together the other day to 60 Chinese undergrads called The Hero's Journey. And The Hero's Journey is a wonderful workshop designed by a guy called Joseph Campbell, who's no longer alive and with us. And he said this, and please listen carefully to these words that I'm just about to utter. He said, "You may have to give up the life you have planned and find and take up the life that is waiting for you." And that's been my life journey. I didn't ever plan to do anything to do with finance. I was useless at maths. I was a medical guy, and suddenly I became a sales guy by accident because I needed to get married and couldn't live on the salary that the NHS was paying me. So we are talking, and Henry is seeking to help people think through, not just, get the ads and apply for the jobs, but we want people to be able to get decent advice on thinking through what is best for them to do and think about, and then how to prepare themselves to approach the life journey that they want to pursue. And so well, I'm still doing a lot of this work. I have a small number of students that I advise on university entrance, for example. And then we work them through to the point where they get their graduate degree, and hopefully by that time they know what they want to do. So I'm also passionate about this area. And I think, with all due respect to the wonderful people in careers departments in universities, they do what they can do, but it isn't really, as Henry will tell you from his own experience, integrated. It isn't all brought together, and neither is it personalized in a way that helps the young people that it intends to help as much as they need. That's right, Henry, isn't it?
It's completely right. Yeah. It's clinging onto something you said there. Like, sometimes you have to start walking down the path before the path makes itself clear, right? And that's, I think, a very, very accurate statement in terms of, for entrepreneurship, beginning that path, and opportunities will, as long as you're putting yourself out there proactively, right, opportunities will make themselves clear to you. Luck will start to notice, is one of my favorite sayings. The other thing is that if you're navigating that university journey, and you love academia, you may be thinking about masters or a PhD, or you're coming to the end of either of those two things, but then you're not sure how to apply those wonderful academic experiences and qualifications that you have into something, in the career world monetarily, then something I like to think about is, how can you build really accessible experience from the start? Part of that university journey is not to get internships since you've been in kindergarten, right? It's to experience things that you don't like and that you do like, right? And part of that university journey is to try and experience as many things: internships, freelance work, projects, student ambassador roles, volunteering, to figure out what you do like and what you don't like right at the start of your career. If you're listening to this in first year, right? What's most accessible to you? Is it the volunteering? Is it the student ambassador roles? Things that you don't need pre-existing experience to get. If you're in second year, you might have done some of that and figure out, okay, these are sort of things that I sort of like. Double down on it. Look for some part-time roles. Look for some very simple spring weeks or insight days and those things. If you're in third year, find an internship or a placement year. And final year, obviously, is when you need to start looking at graduate jobs and that sort of thing. But it's also when you need to start thinking about, okay, I've got all this experience now. I know what I like, but what are the gaps in my CV? How can I do some free courses and things to plug those gaps? So your degree and your academic is amazing, but it needs to be paired with lots of real world experience as well. It's just this probably, won't succeed. It's the combination of the two that is super important.
I mean, we're not suggesting that there aren't people who, from the day they start education, want to be and plan to be a doctor. There are such people, and they get there, and that's what they do. They wouldn't do anything else. And there are some that might want to be a lawyer. There might even be some boring souls that want to be an accountant. I mean, I'm not so sure about that. But large numbers of people are not absolutely clear on what the hell they're going to do after they've got their degree. So helping them think all that through is one thing, and then assisting them to enable themselves to meet the right people and present themselves in a particular way is another thing entirely. And it is very difficult for universities themselves to do all that stuff, especially if you look at some of our universities. Anglia Ruskin, for instance, in Cambridge, 70% of the students may not be Brits, they're from overseas. So there's culture, there's all sorts of stuff that has to be taken into account. And we are all individuals. And what Henry's saying is he wants to enable the person to be able to think this through and work at it in a particular way. And how's it going, Henry? How are you getting on with it now that you're plunged out there, all at your own expense at the moment,
Yeah, it's I'm loving it. there's up days and there's down days being an entrepreneur, as both of you all know, right? But it feels so wonderful to have a purpose and like a personal mission, right? And to know that purpose and personal mission is trying to help other people navigate their own jobs and their own careers. That feels amazing. It really does. Something that we preach inside the Grad Job Club is that your first job out of university doesn't have to be your dream job, right? I think sometimes there's this preconception that I need to just go for this job, and just these are 3 companies or 3 jobs that I want, and I won't settle for anything else. I won't settle for anything less. And I think that's a really big misconception. Sometimes that first job out of uni is just a stepping stone to get the experience, to get your foot in the door into a company which will help you get to somewhere else. I didn't know about 90% of roles existed before I left university, right? And it was only when I joined my graduate scheme at Virgin Media. Now, I never wanted to work in telecoms, by the way. It was only when I joined that graduate scheme that I then realized that there's this function and this exists and this exists. And then I ended up building a career in tech and engineering, and that is nowhere near to what I ever imagined myself doing. So something that we preach is that the first job doesn't have to be a dream job, right? But it does have to be a job that enables you to build the skills and the things that will eventually enable you to get that dream job. And what we do inside the Grad Job Club is we don't connect you to those employers, right? But we do teach you the skills and the strategies that you will need to go and get those jobs.
So, Henry, question here.
Yeah.
Are we suggesting that, and again, we will have lots of people within universities, working within the universities, supporting like Alan and I do, and obviously, of course, those all-important students as well. Are we suggesting that universities could do better at getting, people prepared for when that day comes and they graduate and leave? I mean, if they did, then you're not required, of course. So we don't necessarily want that. But are you filling a gap because it hasn't been done correct in the first place?
Yeah. So universities do a great job, by the way. I'm not.
Yeah, of course, I'm not saying they don't.
and to cater for tens and tens of thousands of students, different ages, different degree subjects, is really hard. is really, really hard. And universities are also grappling with this concept that their students, their clients are growing up, right? And part of that process of coming to university is figuring things out and teaching yourself and learning these things for yourself for the first time. So universities are grappling with that. The one thing that I really struggled with when I was at university was having one clear strategy. What I found very confusing, I think what is partly wrong with the careers market as it exists at the moment, is that it's so fragmented, right? And what I mean by that is, so in the last, 3 or 4 months, me and the team have chatted to about 500 students, recent graduates. And the one thing that everyone struggles with is strategy, which is this big question, right? The what, the why, the when, the how do I apply to jobs and placements and internships? But what that really comes down to, when you let it simmer for a little bit, boil off the water, it shows that that's a symptom of a bit of a bigger problem. And that bigger problem is fragmentation, right? You've got thousands of CV platforms, thousands of interview platforms, thousands of all these different platforms, right? And universities are required to give a little bit of choice to that. They recommend the CV platform, recommend this, but part of that process is letting a student figure out what's right for themselves. Yeah. Pushing them towards these things that they suggest, but also letting them figure out and navigate that own journey, which is fantastic. But I didn't find that difficult, but it took me a long time to figure out what worked for me navigating all those different things. So where the Grad Job Club comes in is that it sort of tries to cut the noise from all of that. It's through my lived experience, right? It's been through that journey. It's navigated the 7 C's or the 10,000 C's if you're talking about platforms that exist to help you with jobs. And it's plucked the strategies that already work, the proven strategies, the proven roadmaps, the proven frameworks, from me navigating that process and put it into one place for a student to follow. So really, the Grad Job Club is trying to streamline that process and give a student, a recent graduate, one clear roadmap to follow. This is exactly what you need to do. This is exactly the CV template, exactly how you fill in that template, exactly the framework that you need to use to answer an interview question. So it is quite self-guided internally in the Grad Job Club. You'll teach yourself through that stuff using our frameworks, but there's also tons of templates to really make that work and that learning journey very specific and targeted.
I think also, Henry, one of the things you may want to say a little bit about, was the opportunity you had when you were still at university to live and work and learn a bit overseas in a very different culture. And the Grad Job Club, I think, can do an awful lot too, working with students a bit earlier in the graduation process while there's maybe midstream, because the opportunity of international exposure as a student and international exposure to a bit of research and publishing papers can be very, very interesting as a personality and career and confidence building thing. So the Grad Job Club could embrace students' interests while they are graduating, not just as they graduate. But your experience was a good one, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. So I went to live for a month at Liaoning University in China, bit of Beijing, Shenyang, and a place called Chongqing as well. I guess part of your university career, a lot of people think about careers when it comes to the end of their university, right? You're coming to the end of second year, maybe. So that's pretty early for some people. You're coming to the end, you're in third year, and oh my God, I need to think about jobs. I don't really have loads and loads of tangible real world experience and lived experience at the end of my career. So what Alan is saying is that 100% you need to start thinking about all this stuff, and we support students right from the start of their university career. That's so important to start thinking about the experience that you need to build and going to get it across your university career. It doesn't have to be big internships and big placement names. So I did an internship in China, which was awesome. But there's so much lived experience and tangible skills in every single thing that you do. So yeah, maybe it's an internship in China, maybe it's an internship in your own country or in Europe, a bit closer to home, or maybe it's simply just some volunteering, some freelance work for a local company. Maybe it's even just working as a committee member for one of the societies that you're part of, right? There's equal amounts of amazing transferable skills in all of those different things. But thinking about building that experience and gaining those transferable skills right from the start of university, I honestly, as someone who's been through the process and how competitive the job market is now, I cannot urge you enough. If you're in first year now, second year, it's never too late. Whatever year you guys are in thinking of watching this, it's never too late to start thinking about, okay, I need to go and get some experience. There's lots of ways you can do that.
And on the other end of this, Henry, there are the employers. Now, we know that the larger corporations, certainly the organizations that take a lot of international organizations that take a lot of students, spend an enormous amount of energy, don't they, doing their rifling through graduates when they're doing the job seeking. And my own feeling is that there is quite a lot that you can do to ease the load and probably reduce the cost and improve the timetable for the large companies if they'll only give you a chance.
Yeah, 100%. I guess what we have is a pipeline of wonderful talent that have learned how to talk about their skills and apply them in the real world. And I guess the main thing that's front of mind for me, for someone trying to navigate the job market, is how can you show proof in your application, right? And talking about those companies, right? If you're a graduate applying to those companies, then this is the sort of main thing that you need to show in your application. Is what a lot of people miss from their applications, where it's how can you prove to any hiring manager that you are good at what you say you are? How can you prove that you're going to be able to deliver in role? How can you prove that your skills are going to be relevant, right? So I think a lot of graduates who are navigating that process initially struggle to get their foot through the door because their CV is very skills based. It's very much a list of things that they have done and things that they have achieved, but it doesn't show any proof, right? What they've learned, their results, the things they've done. So yes, we can provide a pipeline of talent, but that's the sort of skill that we want to really teach them, to make sure that when they're applying to those big companies, and anyone that we are pushing towards those big companies that we have a relationship with, making sure that they can talk about their skills in a way that's really, really damn powerful, that connects all of their experience, no matter how big or small, as we keep saying, to tangible things that they've done in the real world.
Well, maybe they don't have maybe some of this experience. You know, they went through education, secondary school into maybe college, FE, into university.
Mm.
Maybe they've had, a kind of part-time job to fill in around to earn some extra income to, have a bit of a life, and, to upgrade from pot noodles to something a little bit more extravagant on at least one night a week. They don't now maybe have that experience against the theoretical side. They don't have the practical experience. How can they kind of get that across then if they're applying for a particular role, maybe with their CV, maybe in an interview process? What would be your kind of tips, advice, guidance for those in that position?
So, the first thing I would say is look for any gaps in your CV. So figure out what sort of roles you want to go for. Look at the job description. Figure out what's required of you, exactly what the requirements are. Figure out what your skill set is. And I'm not just saying what you think you're good at. Don't just say, oh, I'm good at leadership and I'm good at teamwork, but what your real, genuine skill set is that you've proactively developed in the real world. And then figure out what the gaps are between those things. You can't, there's no point trying to get any experience or do anything if you don't know what the gaps are, right? Because we all have limited time and energy, and you might be working a job already, as David's just explained, but you want to move into something else, right? So you have limited time to invest in developing these opportunities, right? So you want to make all of that energy really direct and targeted towards gaining the skills that you really, really need to build. Once you figured out what those gaps are, and you can use ChatGPT to find those gaps, right? Very, very simply to plug in job descriptions, all the requirements, and connect it to your CV. What are my skill gaps? Just tell it to, the prompt needs to tell it to be very honest and open with you. Once you have those skill gaps, there's a few things you can do. Obviously, once you've left university, right, which I think is the context we're talking in, things like student ambassador roles are less open to you, but you need to be looking for experience that doesn't require much experience, right? So not starting from the start, but anything like, so something that's really, really powerful is free online courses you can do. So Harvard has them, Stanford has them, Google has them, HP, Hewlett-Packard has them, IBM has them. Loads of free online courses that you can do and get certificates for. So upskill yourself genuinely. They're thoroughly interesting, a lot of them, but also to get big names on your CV. So when we talk about things like ATS software that scans through your CV, oh, you're not applicable, you haven't checked enough boxes, bins your CV. Having big names on your CV and skill sets that are wide and have a lot of breadth because of that really, really helps. So I'd look for things that are accessible. Free online courses are great. Volunteering is great. If you're looking to go into marketing, volunteer at a local cafe to help them do their marketing, or do some freelance work if you can, right? If there's a cafe with a really bad logo and you want to be a graphic designer, go and offer to redo their logo, even if it's for free. But it just shows that we've spoken about proof as being what hiring managers want. How can you prove you're good? But also proactivity is the most important thing, right? So people aren't expecting you to come out of university with tons of internships and placement years and all this sort of stuff. People aren't expecting that. It helps. Yeah, there's no denying that, obviously, but people aren't expecting it. And so people just genuinely want someone that's really proactive, that has moved in the right direction to develop the skills that are going to be necessary for the roles they're applying for. You can teach 90% of skills in role, right? So that proactivity is what I would look for as a hiring manager. I know it's what other hiring managers look for. So I guess, David, to answer your question, it's about finding the experience that is most accessible to you, that's easy to get without pre-existing experience.
Now, Henry, let's just talk about something equally important, but a little bit different. When did you start this company, the Grad Job Club? A few months ago, yeah?
So it launched mid-October last year.
Well, tell us a bit about what it's been like. Tell us a bit about the challenges and the frustrations and the high spots, and because people that are thinking of starting a company of any kind have got to confront this. There you were with a well-paid managerial job at Virgin Media, and you said to me, it wasn't a bad job, but I'm pretty well not motivated anymore to do this for somebody else. I'm really got a passion to do my own thing. And there you went, you jumped, you done it. That's it. That's that. No wages, no social security. Okay, you got a nice mum and dad that give you somewhere to live. But how's it been? What have the challenges been?
I would say and this isn't to put you guys off, it's probably been one of the hardest things I've ever set my mind to. Right, building this is really hard. It's really hard, but it's so fulfilling at the same time. So we're at the moment we're touring around lots of universities. This is just a slight tangent. I'll come back to the question. Touring around lots of universities. We're at Canterbury University at the moment, giving talks to students and partnering with societies. But being a traveling salesman is exhausting. And this is what an entrepreneur feels like to me. It's exhausting, but it's also really energizing in a weird paradoxical way, right? You're exhausted, but you're also weirdly energized at the same time. So it is really hard, right? But I would have it no other way. So as Alan says, I sort of started the business in mid-October last year. The hardest part for me, I'm going to be just really open and transparent with you guys. The hardest part for me is this whole concept of delayed gratification, which is something I've been not battling with. It sounds like I've been struggling with it, but well, I guess at times I have, but I've been trying to grapple with, I suppose, and get my head around, in the sense that you can't just build a product and expect someone to buy it. When someone does buy something you've built, it's the most insane feeling. You're like, oh, someone's buying this. This thing didn't exist like 5 months ago. I've made this thing and someone just gave me money for it. It's a crazy thing to think about. It feels cool. But the concept of delayed gratification is a weird one, because you're putting 10, 11, 12 hours in a day, right, to get something off the ground. And you don't see any results. You just see rejection. And I'm starting to see a little bit of traction, but I'm still in that rejection phase. And I'm sure, David, Alan, you still get a lot of rejection as you go through it, right? I'm positive of that, I'm sure. But that concept of delayed gratification, if you're starting a journey now, if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, I'd say is the most important thing that you have to get comfortable with. Otherwise, you are putting loads of work in for a week and nothing's happened in this week, and you feel crap about yourself. But you have to know that it's going to take time. And I can't give you advice on it other than you've just somehow got to get used to the fact that it's going to take a while to do. And I've really only just come to terms with that. I think my girlfriend would say that I still grapple with it here and there. But I've painted a little bit of a negative picture about entrepreneurship. I haven't meant to. That's the honest truth about it. But it's also it's super fulfilling at the same time, all right? And I know
let me just come in and say to all of you listening that I'm working closely with Henry on this, and he also spent an enormous amount of time figuring out the different business models and revenue models and monetization issues. Yeah. He's not just out there with his cap on, happy and slappy. He's really working hard to build this into a business, and it is complex and it is difficult. There are many angles to it. There are different clients, and we haven't yet, I think we'd have to be honest, Henry, and say we haven't yet got the correct or the most likely business model worked out yet. We've still got some work to do on that. So he hasn't just been out there enjoying it, then having a low spot, then another high spot. He's spending a lot of time. Anyone interested, he'd be happy to send you a complete presentation of what he's done, wouldn't you, Henry? You've got that. Anyone interested to have a look at it, tell Henry, we'll give you his email, and he can connect with you. He's done all sorts of other promotional things and videos. And in his spare time, he's created a wonderful website for one of my companies, China Future Creative Class, which I think is an amazing piece of work in a short space of time. So, but there comes a time when the excitement is great and the emotions are strong, but you've got to get that business model sorted out, because you can't go on forever because you're not a charity.
Yeah. Yes. And don't sugarcoat it, Henry. You've done the right thing, because so many people make out that running your own business, whether you're a freelancer, self-employed, or you're setting up and building an empire over time, some people kind of go, this is easy, I'm living a life of Riley, or they give off that impression on occasion. It's not. You've just explained it. It is challenging. It has its ups and downs. There's obstacles, obstructions. You're looking at the bank account, and there might be some money in there today and it's gone tomorrow because you've had to pay out for X, Y, and Z. It's not easy, and let's not pretend it is easy, because if it was easy, everybody would do it, and not everybody does do it. So I think Steve Jobs, wrapped it up very neatly, or did obviously in his past. It's the insane people that go off and run their own business. And it's the crazy ones that change the world. The famous sayings that he's used. And that is so true. And I would say to anybody, it's super rewarding. It's super energizing. But yeah, it can, literally draw your energy out of you on day-to-days. But I will say, from my own perspective of 30 years of running businesses, I've had a lot more ups than I've had downs. And it's the ups that keep you going.
I'm sure
and it's the great people you meet. the great conversations you have, the people you get introduced to, you build relationships, friendships, collaborations. That is the power of building something fantastic. So absolutely wish you all the best with it. What we do want to do is make sure people can get in touch with you. How can people get in touch with Henry? What is the best way to reach out, find out more about the Grad Job Club, or anywhere else that you can help them? How can they connect with you?
Best place is social media. I'll pop it in the chat, shall I? So I have various social media accounts for myself, which is Henry O'Farrell, but I also have, which would be the best place for you guys to go to.
You've got a website address.
Grad Job Club, which is our Instagram. You can find us on TikTok as well. But also, if you want to have a more specific look at exactly what we do in terms of what we offer and how we might be able to support if you're going through that process, then we have a website called the Grad Job Club, funnily enough, .co.uk. And that will give you some wonderful context. There's lots of videos of me talking through my journey on there in a little bit shorter and snappier form that will explain that to you. And I guess so it'd be great to connect with you on there, by the way, guys. Make sure you head over to especially Instagram and TikTok is where we're most live, and we share tips 2, 3, sometimes 4 if you're lucky times a day on how to structure your applications and all that sort of stuff. I'd say just one last thing I want to say, if that's okay, David, on this topic. Since we're talking about entrepreneurship a little bit more generally, I think a lot of people, Instagram generally, what's the word I'm looking for? Makes things, it glamorizes entrepreneurship a little bit. But it also makes people chase financial freedom, right? There's this whole concept of start an online business, move to Bali and get financial freedom, right? This freedom word is thrown about a lot. Very important word. I'm all for it. I love it. I'm chasing freedom myself. Financial freedom is one type of freedom, right? But the freedom that really motivated me, or the desire to build freedom that motivated me, was creative freedom. So I just wanted to I guess anyone listening to this at the start of their journey and they're thinking, oh yeah, I want financial freedom, basically means, it's basically chasing money, which is fantastic and should be a motivator. But there's other types of freedom. For me, creative freedom was the most important. When I was at Virgin Media, I felt quite stifled working for other people, because you're always delivering what is required for your boss, for your manager, for whatever it is, whoever it is that you work for in that company, right? And there's this brand guidelines and all these different things. So for me, I just felt stifled creatively. I couldn't build what I wanted to fit the audience that I wanted because I wanted to build it, quite simply. That creative freedom is why I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so that I could guide my own direction, my own thinking, my own thought, my own product, my own offering in any which creative direction that I wanted. So I just want to say that final piece. But yeah, guys, head over to at the Grad Job Club, Instagram and TikTok, and connect with us there. And we'll answer. If you have any questions, by the way, on your career, just ping us a DM and we'll get them answered for you. The team will help answer that.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that you summarize that. People go on a journey for different reasons, running their own business. I ask lots of startups why they start a business. Quite often, these are some of the reasons I get. I've worked for somebody and I think I can do it better, or I see a better way of delivering that product or that service or that solution. I'm working there and I'm getting paid X, but I can see them making, far more money. Yeah. I want that financial freedom myself.
Yeah.
I believe I can earn more money working for myself than I can for somebody else. I want that ability to be in control of my own destiny. I haven't got to answer to a boss or, ask, can I have tomorrow off? Or I'm going to lay in bed a little bit late this morning, or I'm going to work late tonight. And you can be in control of your own calendar. So if you've got family responsibilities, you can schedule, within reason, everything around your your workload. It's really interesting. So they're kind of some of the reasons I get. Jump a year later when I catch up with those people, or, a year from when they've started, I ask the same question, what's it like? They go, blimey, like we just saying, I've never worked so hard. I'm making less money now than I've ever made, because they're typically reinvesting their money back into the business. And I just don't seem to have much time. All I will say, that's just that blip. That's the first 12, 18 months. It does get a lot better. I can promise you. You do get to that point where you put in place the right systems, the right solutions, and you have people around you. You know how to delegate, outsource, or automate processes. So things do change. But startups, most occasions, it's tough. You've told us that. We know that. And those that are on the journey will respect that as well. So I'm so grateful that you were honest and shared that and didn't go, oh, no, it's been awesome. We're making millions of pounds and I'm retiring next week and stuff like that, which from time to time you do see painted on Instagram and other social media.
Of course, there are outliers. And if anyone's seen Shark Tank, and Mr. Wonderful, the investor from there, he's not that I've made millions, but he said the first 10 million is the hardest and the second 10 million is the easiest, or something like that. The first 10 million is hard, right? The first mountain is the steepest.
Yeah, there we go. So Henry, one final top tip you'd like to leave everybody with today. It could be anything you like. Just get on and do it. What would you leave them with? Your final thoughts?
My final thought is to learn how to sell yourself and build. Let me start that again. I messed that up. So we can clip this. My final thought, that the biggest thing I can leave you with is it's never too late to start building experience. Once you have that experience, learn how to market yourself and talk about that experience so that you can prove to other people that you are going to be able to deliver. That would be what I say.
Perfect takeaway. We don't need to clip this because it is live and unscripted. Alan, and I am going to pass across to you to say the final wrap-up words.
Very, very final wrap-up words. I would also say that I agree entirely with Henry's final words, but I would also urge those of you that are starting businesses to see if you can find a good mentor or two, someone you really trust who's not particularly interested in making money out of you at all, but really wants to help you, who will be honest with you. As Henry's been honest with us, I've been honest with Henry. As David knows, I work with a lot of other people starting up companies, and I'm always honest with them. I never encourage them in the wrong way to think they're doing right if I think they ought to be doing something different. So mentors can be very, very important. And I'm very happy, of course, to be not just his grandfather, but his mentor. So that's what I would say. Keep going, Henry. Now, one final thing. Can I just ask, David, are Jianguo and Echo online in Beijing? If you are, can you put us a message up?
I haven't seen any messages come in from them, but if you are there, we do have about a 15-second delay from us speaking to broadcast. So we'll just hold on and see if anything does come back into the message box.
They were here last time.
And
they said they'd try and be here tonight. If they're not, they're going to get a copy of this recording, and they're going to be informed that Henry and Gabby will be out there in Beijing sometime not too far in the future. And I would like you to be able to meet them, Henry, because they're wonderful students.
If you're here, guys, that'd be amazing. We would love that.
Reach out, connect, and have a conversation before you go there. In that case, then, I'm going to say the final thank you. Thank you very much, as always, to my co-host, Professor Alan Barrell. And Henry, great to have you back here in the studio, talking us through your journey over the last 12 months. Wish you all the best with it. No doubt we will bump into each other in the not-too-distant future. For those that are going to join us next month, we are back next month with another fantastic guest. Annie Brookling will be coming into the studio and talking about her journey. But once again, thank you, Henry. Thank you, Alan. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you all and both. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.